Hi everyone, good evening. Thanks for coming and joining us for our latest installation of Musician Monday for our Musician Treatment Foundation. Now, I'm sitting here next to my dear friend, cousin, music icon, Thor Harris. He's an Austin-based musician for 35 years and knows everyone and everything about the music scene in Austin. And I'm Alton Barron. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm the founder of the Musician Treatment Foundation that was founded to provide free or greatly subsidized care for under and uninsured needful professional musicians for their shoulder, elbow, and hand problems, those being the most critical to them continuing to be able to ply their trade and make beautiful music for all of us to enjoy. Thor, my cousin Thor, yes, let me just say that we are wearing our masks to remind everyone that this is a critical component to continuing the battle against COVID. We are going to take them off. Thor is family. We also have some we've been sanitizing regularly. We've been sanitizing. I'm going to spray my hands. I'm going to spray cousin Thor's hands. I'm not going to kiss him today. Even though I usually would. And so we are fine, we're not spreading. We've
both been tested.
We've both been tested. We've also done the screening. Remember the screening, the best screenings are fever, loss of sense of taste or smell, a cough, and obviously malaise. And we have none of that. We're healthy individuals, and we've been trying to get through this like everyone else. So again, cousin Thor, thanks so much for being here and allowing us to discuss you and your music and your own orthopedic malady that happened that was critical to your playing. And so without further ado, I'd like you to maybe tell us something about what happened to you and how this came into play.
So a thing to know about Cousin Al and our family is we love tools and fixing things and working on things. In fact, he's a mechanical engineer as well as a hand surgeon. So I am a musician, but I also have this great day job. I'm a plumber and a carpenter, a woodworker. I don't remember what year it was, but I fed this finger, my left pointer finger, into a bandsaw. I was working in the wood shop and I cut the digital nerve on this side of that finger. And Cousin Al did this sensitivity test and ascertained that within a couple of minutes of us hanging out after I saw him the day that I did it. Al happened to be in town, and we from there decided that probably the nerve needed to be microscopically reattached, or I would have a numb this side of my finger for life. There's a little bit of a chance that they'll find each other and grow back together. That does happen, right?
It does.
But if you do something jagged and horrible like a saw blade, the chance is less. A knife, perhaps, but a saw blade does just too much violent damage to the tissue, so it's likely that they wouldn't have grown back together and I wouldn't have gotten feeling back.
Yeah, and one other component to that is the fact that with especially a jagged cut and even a clean cut, there's a gap that forms. They pull apart, they have a little rubber band-like effect. They pull apart and that leaves a gap and the nerve starts regenerating. The nerves, our peripheral nerves, have the capacity to regenerate just like one of the last remnants of our prehistoric days where we were salamanders and so forth. The salamander tails can grow back just like these nerves. But the problem is when they grow back, if they don't have a good tube to grow into perfectly straight, some of those fibers, those microscopic fibers, will then grow off just kind of not know where to go. And they form what's called a neuroma, which is highly sensitive because it's raw nerve endings. And those, in addition to the persistent numbness, which someone as deft and talented as Thor would need to feel, especially the sticks, being a percussionist and so forth, but also you get these major hypersensitivity. And I've had people come in to me who have had these untreated, who have said, just cut my finger off or cut my hand off because I can't take this one more day, because it's so sensitive that even a brisk wind will make it highly sensitive. And of course, trying to hold sticks or do any manual work such as carpentry and woodworking would again create that same effect. And as I recall, by the time you got up to see me, you were already having a lot of that sensitivity in addition to the numbness.
Yeah, there's this thing, Cousin Al can describe it, but it feels like you're being shocked. When you sever a nerve like that, if you then bump it on something, it feels like you're being electrocuted.
Yeah.
And I remember I would search through like a backpack to try to find something, and I didn't realize how much like our nerves really are like eyes on the ends of our fingers. I couldn't find for a while, because it took, even after Al reattached the nerve, it took a while for all that to wake back up.
Right.
So I did some months with it numb, so I did get to learn what it would have been like had I not had access to the surgery. Because a friend of mine who's an ER doctor, Mitra, she sewed me back up just so I'd stop bleeding all over the place. That would have been the end of it if Cousin Al hadn't been in town.
Well, but why would that have been the end? The end of it was, as I recall, you had no health insurance.
No health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know, just if you take an average across the country for having this type of surgery not in a hospital or a surgery center with a surgeon, with anesthesia, under a microscope, etc., that total cost is going to be around $25,000 in our current healthcare system. Without insurance, that's untenable. Even sometimes with insurance, it's still a huge copay with $5,000 deductibles and so forth. So that's why we say both underinsured and uninsured for our mission with the Musician Treatment Foundation. Now, the good news in Thor's case was that because he's a touring musician, the one thing you had were plenty of miles. Mm-hmm. So he said, look, I'll fly up to New York, and I helped build the surgery center we have in New York, so we were able to do that for free. I obviously work with the anesthesiologist every day. I said, this is my cousin Thor, and he's a great musician. We need to, and basically we cut the price down to zero. Of course, my fee would be zero too. And that's really the only way. And so Thor became, I've been treating professional musicians for my entire career, 25 years. I've been taking care of the Philharmonic, the Met Opera, all that time, and many jazz, many rock and rollers, etc. And I've always been aware that many come to me with very limited resources. And so I've always been sort of making that work, however, calling the hospital saying, look, we've got to cut this down, but whatever it might be to make it work. But Thor really solidified, one, because I love him, two, because he's family, three, because I know his music. I've heard him in different places in New Orleans and Austin and New York perform, and it just is deeply important to me that he continues to do that and make people happy with the music. And he became my patient zero, the real impetus for formalizing the Musician Treatment Foundation into a nonprofit 501c3. And so anyway, we did that, and I'll add a couple of points about the nerve injury. Yes, they regrow, but they don't come back immediately. So I always tell the musicians, wherever they may have cut in their forearm or wherever, that we are going to have to wait for this to regenerate. And nerves regrow at only about 1 inch per month. And it seems right here that would be quick, but it kind of sits there and gels and gathers itself before it starts regenerating. So you've got about a month hiatus before anything happens. Then it starts regenerating. The good news is that if you can play after the 2 weeks of initial healing, or 3 weeks at the most, if you can play with that numbness, the sensitivity goes away, that hypersensitivity, because you've protected it. You've reconnected the tube that can then keep those wild axons from going every which way. And so that's the staging process for musicians. But these need to be treated right away. Beyond 3 weeks, if you let these go, that ball of scar, we can repair them, but it's much harder, and we have to often take out a segment of nerve and bring it closer together. So it's a longer recovery, it's a harder surgery. So you really want to try to get these done ahead of time. So fortunately, this was some years ago, maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah,
and our foundation was only officially became a nonprofit just coming up on, well, this July will be 3 years, so not very long. But again, you were kind of my patient zero, and have always been following this and asking you about it. Obviously now this is water under the bridge and just part of the long life you've had in music. But can you show us that it still works?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to show you guys, I play drums, but the hardest instrument, as I was relearning and my nerves were coming back, when you play clarinet, there's a note right here, just a hidden. I couldn't feel that note at all. So that was, I could do that, but having no feeling in this side of my finger made that really hard.
Yeah, and that while you're getting set up, that's a good point, because each musician has a unique need. That each of the fingers, the elbow, the shoulder, and I treat the whole upper limb, is any one thing can disrupt the ability to play. I have a violinist right now who has a bad frozen shoulder, and she needs to be able to adduct the arm, externally rotate the shoulder, and then bring her hand up in this position to be able to get the higher notes on the violin. And if she can't get that initial movement there, then she just simply can't play. And so that's a critical one specific movement. With that type of thing, I'm a orthopedic surgeon. I can do almost everything I need to do with limited elbow, limited shoulder function, even limited wrist motion. So musicians are so unique in that, for instance, think of a trombone player. Trombone player, if they have to get to the lowest notes, have to fully extend their elbow, fully extend their wrist, fully extend their big knuckles and their fingers to get out to the lowest note. All of that is required. Any one of those that's lost prevents them from playing. So, and playing at the level they need to. So that just brings into relief the great needs that musicians have that really are different than most of the rest of us. So anyway, looks like we're set up. So we're going to swing over and see if he can still play after his nerve injury.
So when this happened, at first I thought, okay, if my finger's going to be numb for the rest of my life, I'd go back to traditional grip, which is like this. But I learned traditional grip, but then I switched over in my teens to parallel grip, which is like this, and that nerve is everything in this grip. And this finger works great now. What else did I want to say? When I played one show while my finger was still taped up after the surgery, and I played with I think I played with traditional grip, and I had a little synthesizer on my left side so I could just push some buttons. But it was what you were talking about, the hypersensitivity. Yeah. It was like if I just barely bumped it, it felt like I was being electrocuted. So, but Cousin Al would tell you that it takes a few months, but I could swear that sensitivity continued to return to this finger for the better part of a year. there's a tiny bit of numbness in one part of it, but it didn't take much for me to start playing again. And what you were saying about the trombone player, musicians are, it's not that we're all just super irresponsible and don't have health insurance. That may be somewhat true, but when you spend a huge part of your life becoming a musician, you forgo a lot of it's not a good paying job, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of reasons to become a musician, great reasons. Money isn't one of them. And health insurance, as you know, is crazy expensive and all messed up in this country anyway. I was uninsured at the time. I just thought I'll figure out a way to make do.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thank you. I think that should we swing back around now? What I'd like to, you started, I think you've led us in the direction where I wanted to end with, which is to talk a little about COVID and what it has done and the effects it's had. I'm going to speak superficially about it just for a second and say it's because we are based between New York and Austin, the foundation. We continue to be in touch with. We have a big benefit coming up on July 18th that we're doing. It's called Physicians for Musicians, because we're building a network around the country to take care of even more needful musicians than I can do just here in Austin and in New York. And the COVID has had a devastating impact on musicians. It's had a devastating impact on the world. And I'm not trying to pretend that musicians have been any more affected than anyone else. However, we know, because this is what we both do, that all the venues have been closed. All the sources of sometimes meager but necessary income have been lost. The critical touring capabilities that most musicians are able to pay their bills with have been lost. And we know that, speaking of insurance, that the most recent estimate was 43 million more people are uninsured in the U.S. because of COVID. That's because of furloughs, because of losing jobs. 25 million, or now it's 33 million, I think, have lost their jobs. And with that comes a significant subset of those are people who are insured through their jobs.
Yeah.
So
it's a terrible way to set up health insurance.
Yeah.
Who thought of that?
In any case, the problem now that is not just the loss of income, not just the loss of the venues, even closing some permanently. We just had the Shady Grove in Austin closed permanently, and this has been an iconic place to play for many years in Austin. And
what just closed? Janis Joplin got famous first in Austin playing at Threadgill's.
Oh, right.
And
yes,
Threadgill's just closed. That was like a hippie diner where they had shows, and
that's right.
It's sort of like where we always think of Janis Joplin having gotten her start. It just closed because of
So we're in that. So we have the economic aspects, but how, Thor, has it affected you? Are so deeply embedded in the Austin music scene and beyond. I mean, you're an icon here, but you know everyone, and you play with so many different people. You just improvise, and you just will walk in and start playing with someone. You have Thor and Friends as your group, and your latest project, if you will, and so many people like you have had to just truncate that or end that completely. And how does that affect, one, your mood, your creativity, and the brotherhood, if you will, of musicians, because so much of it is about the togetherness and the making music together. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's been super hard for a lot of musicians. I feel really lucky in that, well, for several reasons. I'm also a plumber and a carpenter, and those are considered essential services, meaning I'm expendable. I have to fix things to keep the world still working. So I can still work, but a lot of my friends, a thing happened that I'm sure you all know about as people began getting music from streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. Record sales basically dried up. We do sell records, but the main, like as far as like independent, what I would call interesting music, music that's not super mainstream, doesn't make much on the Spotify algorithm.
Right.
For you to make money from Spotify, I don't know that anybody really gets paid what they should from those streaming platforms. You can actually look up the number. It's pretty pathetic. The amount that you get per play on any of those streaming platforms. So the way all the musicians that I know made money was from concert tickets, and then when you play concerts and tour. I've toured for years with a band called Swans from New York, so I'm sort of a part of the New York music scene as well, as much as I am the Austin music scene. And the way we would make our living was selling tons of merch, because people do buy records at shows.
Yeah.
In record stores a little bit, but mostly moving vinyl and shirts and things at shows was a huge part of how a lot of my musician friends made a living. That's dried up overnight. And realistically, it's not coming back for a while.
Yeah.
And you mentioned mental health. Yes, it's a higher percentage of us musicians that have depression. I think just tons of people are dealing with this. Doctors, lawyers, trash truck drivers.
Yeah.
The world changed overnight. There's a lot of potential to come out of this. I mean, we could come out of this with a better way of doing healthcare. We could come out of it with new appreciation for environmental problems that we have. But a lot of it is pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my musician friends are going through, pretty scary times.
I know it's impossible to put a percentage on this, but I'll just say percentage because I can't think of another way to say it. What percentage do you think of your mental health and your staving off depression comes from the making of music in a band setting and before an audience that is giving back to you in response with smiles, with clapping, with head nodding, with tears sometimes and so forth? What percentage of that do you get back?
There's something that nothing else but that does something so special. And sometimes, like and I know that when I was a kid, music was the first thing that I saw happen, and it was the Jackson 5 for me. I saw the Jackson 5 when I was about 6 years old, and it was the first thing in our culture that I saw that really made me feel like I wanted to be part of culture. A lot of it was like, I don't know, it was the 1970s. We had horrible presidents like Richard Nixon. And, what I would just see like around me, I was just like, what is this world I've been born into? But then my sister puts on a Jackson 5 record and I'm like, whoa, okay, this might be all right. And touring is a tiresome thing, but people walk up to you after the shows. I'm not afraid of people at all, so I meet fans after the shows, and it's just like it was for me when I was a kid. It's like, people have these moving experiences, whether I do or not, and I often do. But they would come up to me after Swans shows, and I would always try to hug as many of the fans as I could. They would just be so obviously moved by musical experiences, and I can so relate to that. And I know that you were too, which is sort of how you ended up doing this.
Yeah.
Cousin Al went to undergrad in Austin, and Austin has been a thriving music scene. It's a little harder now because it's expensive to live here, but the music scene hasn't dried up here by any means. An awesome thing that we have going for us now to throw in something really hopeful is home recording has gotten much cheaper and easier. You can do multi-track recording and send files over the internet to musicians all over the world. And I am doing overdubs for a band in Holland today.
Nice.
You can do that from your living room. So we are still making a lot of things, and I think that some really great music is going to come out of this super strange time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be made in this weird different way where everybody plays from their house, and then it's sort of like these albums that we're working on are sort of like exquisite corpse letters, because you just you do part of the drawing and you send it on.
Right.
The next person does the next part.
So you mentioned the hugging. Thor and I have a history of a lot of hugging. And we hug a lot of people as well. I hug a lot of my patients. Thor hugs everybody, basically. And how are you going to deal with that when you are able to tour again? How are you going to pull back physically and emotionally? Or you may not pull back emotionally, but how are you going to be able to convey in the ways you have historically? What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's already so strange. Like to run into people and not hug them, because I'm having to retrain myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, how long is it going to be?
Right. Well, some of the people that are the philosophers and journalists and so forth have talked about how the handshake is really not necessary. And it may not be necessary, but hugs, I feel, are necessary.
Yeah.
So that's a problem, and so we'll see how this plays out. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we'll be able to hug more.
Yeah, I'll take my chances with the vaccination whenever it's ready.
Right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For being here. Thank you for being in my life, and thank you for being giving so much and so richly from yourself with your music. We actually have one more person here in the room who happens to be someone very near and dear to you.
Yeah, my partner Peg is somewhere upstairs, and we're going to play a little bit of marimba for you.
Yeah, because it's just a special time and a special sound and music. And
hold on, I'll get Peg.
Yeah. In the meantime, I will end with that, but I have already thanked Thor, and I want to thank all of you for coming and hearing us tonight and listening in and trying to get a glimpse into the world that we're trying to help a little bit through people like Thor and all of his musical friends and all of the musicians out there who have been struggling to continue to make music, continue to make the world a better place through their music. I hope you'll support us in any way you can. The Musician Treatment Foundation, our website is mtfusa.org. We've been posting these live streams afterward, and so you can access previous ones. We had Elvis Costello last week and his dear friend Alan Mays, and so forth and so on. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel that's easily searchable for these live streams. Again, before we say goodbye, I want do we have Peggy and and Cousin Thor? I'll say also that we do anytime welcome any questions you have as musicians or for your musician friends. I do intermittently also some live streams where I just do pure Q&A, and I'll answer any question that I know the answer to, and I'll even try to answer things I don't know anything about. No, I'm kidding. But anything for the shoulder, elbow, and hand that relates to musicians, who, as Thor represents suffer the same types of injuries, falling off curbs, falling off bicycles, but also some unique injuries that relate just purely to the tremendous amount of overuse, repetitive playing, repetitive motion that happens in order to make music and to practice and prepare for shows and so forth. So with that, I think we're going to start with Cousin Thor here on the marimba, and again, thank you, and we'll end and fade out with that. Good night. Okay. All right. I think we're all done. Thank you again. I'm going to give you
y'all.
kind of a hug here. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.